Okay, this would be like number 3, little rollout. I'm about maybe 30 miles outside of Corpus, heading north. It's about 15 degrees cooler right now. And even a few weeks ago when I went to San Antonio on one of my rides, it was about 20 degrees cooler. And it's obviously, I understand why. So Corpus kind of feels like a permanent, for my Catholic friends, purgatory. For my Protestant friends, like hell. Now let me give you a little thing. I didn't catch a lot of news. The next few I do, or if I do a few more today. One local news story. Let me call this, whatever, the Corpus Christi lawsuit against the opioid or pharmaceutical companies. Corpus Christi, Texas has joined, I'm not sure if it's a class action lawsuit, but this is the local news. We joined in to a lawsuit against drug companies to try to get money. Now, the city leaders have justified this lawsuit in saying the drug companies are responsible because of the opioid epidemic, and I'm going to talk about that a little, in this country. Rightfully so, a lot of people have gotten addicted to drugs because they got prescriptions. We understand all that. But why is Corpus doing that? They made a huge mistake in this. They're doing it to get money. Just like people that go to Thomas J. Henry and all. Let me tell you, I'm not a lawsuit person. When I retired from the fire department, I had the last year at the fire department in 2008. Man, there were days at work where I could not stand up. And my captain, you could see it. And he saw I was very bad. And I said, I can make it, I'd kid him because I had severe back problems. But I also had 25 years at the department. And many guys at the firehouse, when they had back problems, we had some that were lawsuit type guys. Just a few. And you knew who they were. But I didn't abuse that throughout my years at the firehouse. Many of us did not do that. But it was so bad, and it was an injury many years before, picking up a very heavy football player at a football game at Texas. At that time, it was Texas A&I University, Kingsville. It's now Texas A&M. And there were the college players on the game one night. And we had to go pick him up. He got injured, big football player. Black guy, if I remember. But man, my other friend, we didn't pick up the stretcher at the same time, and I blew my disc. I'll never forget that because I went totally numb. It's the first time I ever had an injury like that. But I only was off of work, like I didn't want to be off of work, and maybe for a week I was off of work. But for many years, every now and then, if you picked up something the wrong way, so that was like a disc problem. But my last year at the firehouse, it was so bad. There were times, even at the house when I was going to go to work, I was up all night because putting like that machine on your back, I made a hole in my back like a thing trying to you had to put pressure on it nonstop or else it was constant pain. But I kept walking and doing my stuff. And the last year, I was on injury leave, not for a long time. And the normal process of injury leave, some of the guys are on it for years. And I didn't like that because you're not on your 24-hour shift, and then you go to a therapy, and I did that for a very short time, and then I retired. And normally the guys, some of them would challenge it, you'd get money, and then and I remember the guy that was in charge of our city, I forget what the title was, but he knew I had that back injury, and he said, whatever you do, don't get surgery, John. Because then they would settle. You could even stay on the job, but the city had a certain thing. You'd get so much money. I said, I'm not interested in money. And one day the firehouse called me up. You got to go to your therapy. And I said, I'm retiring. Well, what do you mean you're going to challenge? I said, I challenge nothing. And they didn't send me my nice, thank you for 25 years of service for the city of Kingsville. They waited a few months because they thought, oh, surely John will do the normal thing, which is, settle for whatever, get some money out. I didn't. I said, that's it. I'm done. I did my 25, no injury money, none of that. So Corpus has now gone on the books that as an entity, you yourselves are trying to get money for a lawsuit. And I'm going to tell you why it's unjust what you just did. And the reciprocal thing on that, whatever you sow, you're going to reap. You just opened up Corpus Christi spiritually to a bunch of lawsuits, simply because you went that route. Now, about 4 years ago, when I seen a doctor, I remember I was walking nonstop all day for miles and miles and miles, drinking coffee all day. And so I had to get diagnosed by a psychiatrist. I had every symptom of whatever you would refer to as bipolar or whatever it was. And I remember when they were asking me, how did you get here today? It was at a clinic called MHMR, Mental Health, Mental Research. I said, I walked from Far Bluff, which was one of the symptoms. There were many symptoms that you could see. And then when I spoke to one of the people that was supposed to maybe put you on something, a medication, I said, look, I've never in my life done a Xanax. And one time I was prescribed a Valium many, many, many years ago in Kingsville. And I said that one Valium, and this is true, I never did it illegal Valium. I said, but that one Valium, it allowed my mind to settle, whatever it was at that time, early in the 90s. I said, and if I could just get maybe one Xanax, I said, I've never done one, which I was honest. And I said, that's all, I think it would help me. Because I was walking all day, I had every symptom in the world of bipolar, whatever. He said, we're going to give you something else, like something for alcoholism. And I said, I really don't need it, but... And then some other thing, I forget the name of it. He said, take this and see what it does. I took one of those, whatever it was. Some of my friends, Andy knew what that other medication was. I took one of them and immediately was in hallucinations. Because he said, try these. That was it, I took one. And the other medication I didn't need, and I had to pay cash for these, so they were expensive. But either way, I said, all I think I would need is just one Xanax or one Valium. I said, I don't want to, I could not get a prescription for opioid for a Xanax anywhere in Corpus Christi. Now, some of my friends who were prescribed Xanax and others who illegally use all types of drugs in the streets, some of them knew that, man, John, if you just had one Xanax or one, and one time, I won't give you the name, and it was many years ago, they said, John, we'll just give you one. I said, no. I said, I don't have the prescription, it would be illegal. And of course, a lot of people do them on the streets. And I could not get in the city of Corpus Christi a prescription for one single opioid. And I said, look, I'm a retired firefighter. I'm not a history of a drug addict. I said, you cannot. And one of my friends, David Martin, who actually has a legitimate prescription, he said, John, none of the doctors in the city of Corpus, they've all been at our city. He said, you'll never get a prescription for opioid or Xanax or whatever. So I learned at that time that for whatever reason, the doctors in Corpus Christi were very hesitant. In my case, was a classic case of a legitimate use of a Xanax. So I'll just tell you from experience, for Corpus Christi to join that lawsuit is so unjust, because there are other parts of the country, and there's documentaries on this, where you have what they call pill centers or whatever, doctors. That does not happen in our city. And I'll tell you that from experience. Because even someone like me, with no history of drug addiction, though I had one of alcoholism, I could not get a single Xanax. Until this day, I've never done a Xanax. And I would have been the classic case, because I kept walking all day nonstop, drinking coffee all day for a couple of years. And just one would have helped me. So you did wrong. And I'll tell you why I think the city is unjust in their dealings with lawsuits. Because the one case I mentioned, I won't do it all again, but it made national attention and national condemnation. It was the Rosas flash bomb case, and simply was the CCPD was serving a low-level warrant for a nephew or a relative of a man by the name of Rosas, who had his disabled mother living with him and all. And the way they served that warrant, and it was for marijuana, is they shot a flash bomb. It's called a no-knock raid into that man's home. That man did not know they were officers, and that man, Rosas, was targeted by gangs in the past. He came out with a gun in self-defense, and there was a shooting by CCPD as well as Rosas, and multiple people were shot, including officers, and one cop was shot by another cop. Now, then later he said, I did not know you were cops. And understand, some of the other officers, when it went to trial, they tried to put Rosas in prison for life. 7 counts of capital murder on a public servant, all these types of things. And there were many articles in the national media that used that as a tremendously bad thing that happened. Well, Rosas still had to go to trial and was found not guilty, rightfully so. And he brought a civil suit against the city and the county and the PD. And as far as I know, the city is still fighting that, simply because of money. Because any just look at that, meaning leadership that would pray, council members and so forth, any just look at that would have said, we did wrong here. We apologize to you, Mr. Rosas. I think they even strip searched one of his family members, and there was injuries to that family, and they should have never done that. But not only did they try to put that man in prison for life, but then in the area of finances, they should have settled with that man. As far as I know, the sole reason they are fighting it is because of finances. And what Corpus Christi has just done by joining this lawsuit then, the leadership in the city has placed themselves as a city that would seek money, as a Thomas J. Henry type, let's run to the lawyer because we fell down. You have just done an unjust thing. And the word is, you've just opened up yourselves to multiple lawsuits by doing that. Just by the word of the Lord, that's what I say to you.